Welcome to Nassau's Lynden Pindling International Airport here in the Bahamas. We are here in the domestic section of the airport about to go on an island hopper flight. Security is through these doors and it was very simple and quick. And just like that, we're through and heading up to our gate. Domestic gates at this airport have the letter A as their prefix. As you will see later on in the video, all of these gates are remote stands, meaning you have to go outside to get to your plane. It says Flight 374 is on time, but that was not true. The inbound flight was already around an hour late. This delay, however, was not announced anywhere. But hey, at least I get this view on the outside terrace while I wait. An ATR 72 pulls into the airport around the same time that our plane should have arrived. This, however, is not our plane, as like with our flight, is also delayed. And finally, over an hour late, our plane finally arrives into Nassau. Our plane for today is an Aerospatiale Alenia ATR 72-600, registered Charlie 6 Bravo Foxtrot Romeo. And finally, boarding began. This was done all in one zone. An ATR is boarded through an air stair at the rear of the plane. As I was sitting in the second row, I was one of the first people to board the plane. The cabin is in an all-economy 2x2 layout, very similar to the CRJs. And now time for the seat review. The legroom was actually not bad at all. Down here there is one storage pocket, and above there is a much larger storage pocket with a safety card and a waste bag. A standard tray table can be found here, which was small but did the job for a small regional flight. Padding was thin and could have been better. The recline, however, is interesting and it can be brought down through here. Oh, and by the way, the window was very, very dirty. The attendant call button, personal reading lights, and air vents could be found above. Here is the propeller spinning at 30 FPS. Depending on the frame rate, which I will show 60 and 24 FPS, the propeller will seem to spin at different speeds. I will be filming this in 30 FPS to optimize file size. And finally, 1 hour and 15 minutes late, we begin our taxi out to the runway. As you can see, the ATR has an incredible turn radius, and as a result, we do not need a pushback tug. I don't know what happened there exactly, but I think we just had an aborted takeoff. Anyway, here's the real takeoff. Something very interesting I found, every time I let go of the window shade, it automatically slides back up. Halfway through the flight attendants gave everyone a bottle of water and a napkin before returning to the back of the plane for the rest of the flight.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure on behalf of BahamasAir to welcome you into Exoma for your continued comfort and safety. Kindly remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened until the aircraft has been safely parked at the gate. And the captain has switched off the fasten seatbelt sign. Just a reminder before this embarking, please be sure to check beneath the seats in front of you or the overhead bins for any personal items you may have brought on board with you. Please exercise caution when opening the bins as items sometimes shift during the flight. On behalf of BahamasAir Captain Johnson and his entire flight crew, it has certainly been our pleasure serving you this evening. We do look forward to being of service to you again in the very near future. We'd like to once again apologize for the late arrival and for the inconvenience it may have caused you. Enjoy your stay here in Exoma. Pleasant evening to you all.
just like that, we arrived into Georgetown, our ATR-72 being the only commercial plane on the already very small tarmac. So how was the trip overall? Here is the full breakdown. Starting off with seat comfort, there was actually more legroom and space than I'd expect on a small regional aircraft. The seat itself was average and had everything you would expect to find and needed, with my only complaint being the padding being a bit too little. Overall, it was a pretty average seat, so I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Moving on to the service, the crew performed as an average crew would, going over the basic safety features and serving the passengers water before disappearing to the back of the aircraft. There was nothing super spectacular here, so service gets an average score of 3 out of 5. In terms of the food, the only thing we got on the flight was a bottle of water. Though this is plenty for a short island hop, I would expect something a bit more interesting. For example, Hawaiian gives out special local juices on their island hopping flights. Therefore, with the water being a bit boring, food also gets a 3 out of 5 stars. As there is no form of IFE on board this short island hopper, this flight gets an exemption with this field. Moving on. Now for the punctuality of the flight. Our plane was delayed an hour and 15 minutes. Though not a huge delay in the aviation field, this delay was not announced anywhere until around half an hour past our scheduled boarding time. Checking the flight radar, it was very obvious that the flight was going to be already at least an hour delayed, as the inbound flight was as well. Due to this negligence, punctuality gets a 1.5 out of 5 stars. And for the price, a one-way ticket for one person cost $125 US. This entire flight was only barely 45 minutes long, being just slightly over half an hour from wheels up to wheel down. Compared to some other island hoppers, for example, Hawaiian's island hopper, which only costs around $70 for a flight of the exact same length, this is considered ridiculously expensive. However, in some other areas, for example, Guam, such island hoppers can be up to nearly $400. Therefore, pricing gets a 2 out of 5 stars. This puts BahamasAir Flight 374 at an average of 2.6 out of 5 stars. Though this may look low, this is, after all, an island hopper, and you can't really judge much from a flight around half an hour long. And despite the landing being a bit firm, I was quite surprised at the sheer stopping power of the ATR. Therefore, landing gets a 4 out of 5 stars. And like that, our journey aboard the ATR-72 comes to a close.